This is David Russell, Global Head of Market Strategy for TradeStation. And today we'll look at major events for investors and traders. Historic volatility hit the stock market last week, but attention could soon turn to a series of upcoming catalysts. Some of them may be viewed positively, especially after last week's big recovery. The S&P 500 was down as much as 4.3% the morning of Monday, August 5th, but it clawed back to end the week barely down. At least three factors made the big swing possible. First, August is typically a volatile month. Second, big moves in the Japanese yen hurt risk appetite. Third, there was little news to inform sentiment. However, that will soon change as some big events approach. Here are some known or expected catalysts that could impact the market as soon as this week. First, you have inflation reports tomorrow and Wednesday. The less important producer price index comes first, followed by the more important consumer price index. Both are at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Retail sales and jobless claims are at the same time on Thursday morning. Those could be especially important for investors worried about the economy and a potential recession. Next, you have Jerome Powell at Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The Federal Reserve Chair could speak on Friday, August 23rd. The schedule hasn't been released, but he has typically spoken on Fridays of the central bank's annual conference. And then Nvidia reports earnings after the closing bell on Wednesday, August 28th. After that, could we get a new iPhone? Apple is widely expected to release a new model with AI capabilities in the first half of September. For example, Forbes reported, the tech giant will announce by September 5th that it will schedule the event around September 10th, and then we could have a Fed rate cut on September 18th. Financial markets unanimously expect the overnight rate to drop at least 25 basis points. It's impossible to know how these events will unfold. Still, they will probably refocus attention on two major narratives in the stock market this year, which are rate cuts and artificial intelligence, or AI. For example, the last three consumer inflation reports have been lower than expected, and Fed officials, including Powell, have recently made dovish comments. For AI, Apple was a latecomer to the boom, but jumped to new record highs after embracing the technology in June. That's spurring hopes that millions of customers will upgrade their iPhones to support AI. Nvidia has already doubled this year on strong demand for its Hopper chips. The market is now gearing up for Blackwell, a more power-efficient processor, specially designed for AI. The stock has recently stumbled on reports the new product could be delayed. However, Microsoft, Amazon.com, and Meta platforms have increased planned capital expenditures on AI that could support demand for Nvidia's chips. Those upcoming events could be important because Apple is the biggest company in the S&P 500 and Nvidia is number 3. And now let's chart the market. Last week saw a major drop in the stock market, followed by an equally significant recovery. If the S&P 500 had stayed down 4.3%, it would have been the index's worst week in almost 2 years. Its subsequent 225-point bounce was the biggest recovery since the bull run began in November, according to TradeStation data. CBOE's Volatility Index, or VIX, more than tripled, passing 60 for the first time since the coronavirus pandemic, but it stalled and ended the week about 3 points lower. Some chart watchers may view that reversal as a sign of calm returning after a period of fear. Other big drops in the VIX were followed by gains in the broader market. Potential examples include last November, March 2023, October 2022, and November 2020. The index held some potentially important levels as well. It first bounced around 51.20, near weekly closing levels from early March. It next returned above and tested the May 31st low of 51.92. Interestingly, last Monday's low was 9.7% below the all-time high in mid-July. That's almost the formal definition of a correction. Could that mean the pullback has gone far enough? The Nasdaq 100 fought back above its August 2nd close on Friday afternoon, giving the tech-heavy index its first positive week in the last 5. It also touched its 200-day moving average for the first time since March 2023, which may suggest a longer-term uptrend remains in effect. Sentiment dropped sharply. According to the American Association of Individual Investors recurring poll, the proportion of bearish respondents jumped by 12.5 percentage points, the biggest increase since November 2022. That may be considered a bullish contrary indicator, that selling pressures have already been unleashed. Some of last week's big moves resulted from quarterly reports. AI server maker Supermicro beat estimates and issued strong revenue guidance. However, it fell on weak margin guidance. As a side note, that could be positive for the broader AI space because it suggests overall volumes are surging. Warner Bros. Discovery had its biggest weekly drop in almost 2 years after earnings and revenue missed estimates. Management cited deterioration in traditional TV advertising. Axon, the maker of taser stun guns, surged to a new record high after earnings and revenue surprised to the upside. Cybersecurity provider Fortinet also jumped on strong quarterly results. Kellanova, part of the old Kellogg, surged on reports of a potential takeover. Kellanova, ticker K, has snack and prepared food brands like Pop-Tarts and Cheez-It. The cereals are now owned by WK Kellogg, ticker KLG. We now return to the coming week, which brings a few noteworthy items aside from the events mentioned above. Housing in particular may be active later in the week. Nothing is scheduled for today. The producer price inflation report is on Tuesday, along with a speech by Fed policymaker Raphael Bostic. The bigger consumer price inflation report is on Wednesday morning, followed by crude oil inventories. Cisco Systems reports earnings. Thursday features retail sales, jobless claims, and NAHB's Homebuilder Sentiment Index. Walmart, Applied Materials, and Deere issue quarterly results. Housing starts, building permits, and consumer sentiment are due on Friday morning. Thanks for watching. Please visit TradeStation.com for more.